there is actually a very, very dark side to synthetic braiding hair. How about that response, that itching, is actually your body, your scalp, in fact, telling you, screaming, crying out, we are under attack. You have carcinogens, which are cancer-causing chemicals. You have endocrine disruptors, which affect your hormonal system, being used in synthetic braiding hair that is also used widely by Black women who also happen to have the highest risk of uterine fibroid and in some countries cancer. Now, I'm not saying that synthetic braiding hair directly causes uterine fibroids or cancer in Black women, but what I have noticed, I'm not going to join my hair, combine my hair, weave my hair with something that is literally life-threatening, that is toxic, that is quite frankly poisonous. That's being unequally yoked. Fortunately, there are companies that have invested in creating low toxin, hypoallergenic types of braiding hair. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you've been exposing yourself to, how to correct it, and how to make wiser decisions going forward for yourself, for your children, and for every Black woman that you love. Have you ever braided your hair and the first few days or first week have just been hell? It's been excruciating. The itching, the uncomfortability, the sleepless nights, the walking around with a rat tail comb, scratching your scalp, trying to get rid of that never-ending itch. Have you ever wondered why that is? Or have we just been conditioned to accept that as a Black woman, if we want to get our hair braided, then this is just a part of the package? You know, this is a rite of passage, if you would. How about that response, that itching, is actually your body, your scalp, in fact, telling you, screaming, crying out, we are under attack. And I mean literally. So in today's video, we're diving deep into the impact of synthetic braiding hair on the health of your hair and your overall health. This topic is more dire and dangerous than itching. There is actually a very, very dark side to synthetic braiding hair. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you've been exposing yourself to, how to correct it, and how to make wiser decisions going forward for yourself, for your children, and for every Black woman that you love. So let's go. My name is Dami St. Clair. I'm a qualified trichologist, but I am not your average trichologist. And if you follow me, you'll know that I teach hair holistically using my SMP framework. So let's jump straight into the first S, which stands for scientific. But before we do, if you would like my guide on how to address hair loss, how to attain hair growth, and maintain hair health, then click the link in the description. I am sharing what the hair industry is not speaking about, so you will find this guide extremely valuable if phenomenal hair is something that you desire. What is it? What is synthetic braiding hair made of? Well, it's made of plastic. And the problem with that is the type of plastic used in synthetic braiding hair actually causes allergic reactions, it causes chemical sensitivities, and it releases environmental toxins. And we're going to break each of these down. So how exactly does synthetic braiding hair cause allergic reactions? Well, as I mentioned, it's made of plastic, and this plastic is coated with chemicals such as alkaline or formaldehyde. And the reason is to improve the texture, the smoothness, to make it tangle-free. But the issue with these chemicals is that they are potent allergens, meaning they have a high probability of causing an allergic reaction, and in some cases, contact dermatitis. And this can express itself as redness, itching, bumps, flaking, swelling, even blisters on your scalp. And so it causes inflammation. And if you carry on watching the video, I'm going to explain exactly why inflammation is detrimental to the health of your hair and how it can cause permanent hair loss. So moving on to chemical sensitivity. So the chemicals used in synthetic braiding hair release VOCs. VOCs are volatile organic compounds. And what this means is that the chemicals used in synthetic braiding hair can easily turn into gas, which we can inhale or absorb through our skin. And this can cause all sorts of issues. And one of those issues is inflammation. It can cause chronic inflammation. And that's when your body is in a long-term state of defense. So when you have an inflammatory response, your body is responding. Your body believes it's under attack, and it becomes inflamed. And that is the response I spoke about earlier on. So it can be redness, it can be flaking, it could be itching. It's your body literally telling you that something is going on and it's trying to defend itself. But the issue is your body was never designed to be in a long-term state of defense. And when it is, this is called chronic inflammation. And if you have an inflammatory type of hair loss, like CCCA, which is prevalent amongst Black women, I have a whole video on this that you can watch. You do not want to have your scalp in a state of chronic inflammation. And what happens is over time, the follicle becomes damaged and scar tissue can form in that area. And when this happens, that scar tissue covers the hair follicle and it stops hair from growing in that place permanently. This is the reason why chronic inflammation is detrimental to the health of your hair. And so if you have Black women wearing braids and the chemicals in these braids release VOCs and it's literally sitting on your scalp for weeks, sometimes months, maybe you're even doing braids back to back and you have these chemicals, these volatile organic compounds sitting on your scalp throughout the year, you are exposing yourself to these chemicals. And even if it's a low level of exposure, it can cause a sensitivity that means in the future, when you are exposed to this chemical again, it will cause inflammation. And as I've mentioned, this is something that you want to avoid at all costs. And lastly, environmental toxins. So we've established that synthetic braiding hair is made using plastic. And the issue is when this plastic is heated, microplastics are released into the air. And as well as that, the chemicals that the synthetic braiding hair is made of or have been coated with, these are also released into the air. And I mentioned before that formaldehyde is one of the chemicals that they use to coat synthetic braiding hair. Now, the issue with formaldehyde is not only is it a potent allergen, but it is also a carcinogen, meaning it is cancer causing. Not only does synthetic braiding hair contain chemicals such as formaldehyde, but it also contains phthalates. And again, this is to improve the flexibility of the plastic. But phthalates are endocrine disruptors, meaning they affect your body's hormonal system. It throws things out of balance. And so when this type of hair is heated, and these toxins are released into the environment and we inhale them, they have the ability to build up on our fatty tissue. So when you really break this down, you have carcinogens, which are cancer-causing chemicals. You have endocrine disruptors, which affect your hormonal system, being used in synthetic braiding hair that is also used widely by Black women who also happen to have the highest risk of uterine fibroids, and in some countries, cancer. Now, I'm not saying that synthetic braiding hair directly causes uterine fibroids or cancer in Black women, but what I have noticed is that many of the products that are targeted towards Black women contain these cancer-causing chemicals and these endocrine disruptors. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is a compounding effect and contributing factor to these health issues. So we've covered S and we've looked at synthetic braiding hair from a scientific perspective. And now I want us to look at it from a higher lens. But before we do, if you would like my complimentary masterclass where I am laying the foundation and I'm giving you my framework for how to truly address hair loss, how to truly achieve hair health, and just have phenomenal hair and be the most confident version of yourself, then you can click the link in the description and you can access my complimentary masterclass. I go in, and what I am sharing in my framework, it is not being spoken about in the hair industry. I am not too sure why, but it is incredibly valuable. So if you would like access to that masterclass, then you can simply click the link in the description. We're going to look at synthetic braiding hair from a spiritual perspective. So that is the second S in my framework. And I like to look at things from a physical perspective because there are things that affect the health of our hair physically, but there are also things that we cannot necessarily see that are not tangible that also have an impact on the health of our hair. And so if you look at this from a spiritual perspective, from a higher lens, then you are intertwining, you're joining, you are weaving your healthy hair with something that is toxic, that is an irritant, that is poisonous. And I myself would not do that. I wouldn't join myself, or I wouldn't have married a man that was toxic. that was an irritant, that was poisonous. I don't vibes or hang around with women who are toxic. So if I wouldn't do it with myself, then why would I do it with my hair? And you might say, oh, it's not that deep. You're taking it a bit too far. But I think it is that deep because I've seen women moved to tears because of their hair. I've seen women lose their hair and do everything, fight to get it back. So it is that deep. And if I wouldn't do it with myself, then why would I do it with my hair? That's being unequally yoked. I'm not going to join my hair, combine my hair, weave my hair with something that is literally life-threatening, that is toxic, that is quite frankly poisonous. And so that's me looking at it from a higher lens. And you might say that, it's not that deep, but I think it's that deep. Moving on to the P in my framework, which stands for physical. So we've looked at what synthetic braiding hair is, and we've also looked at what it does to your health in general, but I want to look at what synthetic braiding hair physically does to the health of your hair specifically. And so one of the things is it causes inflammation, and I already covered this. So inflammation is something you want to avoid, not just if you have an inflammatory type of hair loss condition like CCCA, but you want to avoid it, period, because it can also cause issues such as folliculitis. And this is where the hair follicle is inflamed. Sometimes it's raised, it's red, it's very tender. And again, if you have folliculitis for an extended period of time, it eventually can end up becoming scar tissue. And when this happens, this is called cicatricial scarring, cicatricial hair loss, where scar tissue forms over the hair follicle and you can no longer see hair growth in that particular area. So this is something that you want to avoid, but this is something that synthetic braiding hair can cause and contribute to. It causes inflammation on the scalp, which leads to a whole host of problems and implications for the health of your hair. Next, we have oxidative stress. So synthetic braiding hair can cause oxidative stress. How so? I mentioned VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Well, these volatile organic compounds, when they get into our body and into our system, it causes free radicals. And so I'm going to break down free radicals very simply, but free radicals are simply unstable molecules within our body. And so these unstable molecules like to stabilize themselves. And what they'll do is they will take an electron. I'm keeping it as simple as I can. It doesn't get any more scientific than this, but they take an electron from a healthy cell in our body to stabilize themselves. And so what this does is it damages our healthy cells. And when this is happening in abundance in our bodies, this is called oxidative stress. And it literally damages our cells, and it can also damage the cells in our hair follicle, and it can impact the ability of that follicle to produce healthy growing hair. And lastly, hormonal disruption. So we've already spoken about the fact that synthetic braiding hair contains things such as phthalates, and phthalates are endocrine disruptors. They disrupt your body's hormonal system. And the issue with this is that your hormones are directly linked to your hair. Cortisol is a hormone that the body releases when it is under stress. It is a fight or flight response. And so, for instance, if I'm walking down the street and I see a dog that is not on the leash, cortisol is rising in my body. And what happens is blood will rush to my extremities. And the purpose is so that I can either use that blood that has rushed to my hands and my feet to fight or to run. And if I see that dog, I'm running. I'm not about to start fighting no dog that's not on the leash. Problem is, your body was never ever designed to be in this state for a long period of time. When there's an abundance of that hormone cortisol, it pushes your hair out of the growing phase, which is the anagen phase, and it pushes it prematurely into the shedding phase, which is the telogen phase. And so these products are having an effect on the health of our hair. So now let's look at the second P in my framework, which stands for practical. Remember, I'm using my SMP framework to look at hair in a holistic way. And this is how you truly achieve hair health. And so the second P is for practical. What can we do about the use of synthetic braiding hair and the implications it has on the health of our hair and our health? Well, fortunately, there are companies that have invested in creating low toxin, hypoallergenic types of braiding hair. Fortunately, there are companies that have invested in creating low toxin, hypoallergenic types of braiding hair. In fact, there are some companies that have moved away from using plastic and they actually use collagen fiber based braiding hair, such as 𝐥𝐢𝐤 hair. And there are also companies that use plant based braiding hair, such as nori hair. Now, I've never tried any of these brands personally myself, but the next time that I have my hair in a protective hairstyle, I will be using one of these brands and I will let you know my thoughts on it. There are also other things that we can do practically when it comes to the practices of wearing braiding hair. Now, the chemicals that braiding hair or synthetic braiding hair are actually made from, that is just one issue, but there's also other issues that come with wearing our hair in braids, such as the tension that is placed along our hairline and placed on our scalp as a result of trying to achieve a desired style. And one of the things that we can do is we can opt for low tension when doing hairstyles that require for us to use braiding hair. Now, oftentimes you go on social media and you will see beautiful braided hairstyles that just look clean. They look sharp. There isn't a single hair out of place. Whilst it looks nice, the question is, what are you compromising in order to have that finished look? When you take down those braids, is your hairline still going to be intact or is it going to have gone on holiday? And me personally, I would prefer for my hairline to be intact, especially if I've put something that is supposed to be a protective hairstyle in. As well as that, we also need to be mindful of the products that we are placing on our scalp when we do these hairstyles. Some of these stylists are laying thick layers of products which in themselves have chemicals that are questionable and can be criticized in terms of what they are doing to the health of our hair and our overall health. So we really need to take a look at what compromises we are willing to take and where we draw the line. Another thing that we can do is we can limit the frequency of how often we are wearing our hair in particular hairstyles. And lastly, this is directed to stylists. So a lot of stylists are exposed to synthetic braiding hair on a daily basis. They are placing synthetic braiding hair in hot water as a part of the styling process and releasing those environmental toxins. And so one thing that I would say is, if you are a stylist, one thing that I would suggest is to consider opting for low toxin braiding hair for your health as well as the health of your client, because you are exposed to these toxins every day. And yes, it might impact your income, it might impact your money. Maybe some people, are still adamant about using the hair that they've been using for years because it's more cost effective. But at the end of the day, you will have to prioritize what is more important, my health or money. And if I was to say to you, I will give you £1 million tomorrow or $1 million tomorrow, but the moment you touch that money, you die. I know it sounds dramatic, but if I was to say that, what would you pick? You would pick your life. You would pick your time on this earth. You would pick your health. And so if we frame it in that way, then we essentially should be making better choices when it comes to the products that we are exposing ourselves to and our clients to. And last but not least, we're looking at the M in my framework, which today stands for mindset. So I want to touch on the mindset that we have when it comes to braiding hair, extensions, adding any type of hair to our own hair. And I personally am going through what I call mindset renewal. And so I've spent many years hiding my hair underneath wigs, underneath braiding hair, protecting hairstyles. And, I would literally allow my hair to maybe see the light of day for 1 month out of the 12 months of the year. And I'm going through a mindset renewal where actually I love my hair and I want to give it the TLC it deserves. I want to immerse my hair and my scalp in water and cleanse it minimum once a week. I want to see, I want to touch it. I want it to be seen. And so for me, I'm going through a renewal of the mindset concerning my hair, and I'm loving it. And when it comes to braiding hair, I think what you could ask yourself is, are you happy without any additions? Do you love your hair without any additions? I'm not saying never touch braiding hair again or never switch up your style, because I love hair versatility. If you had to give it up, could you? Are you comfortable with the hair that you were born with, that you've been blessed with? And if you're not, that's okay. But then ask yourself, is it time for you to have a mindset renewal about your hair? And another thing that we can shift concerning our mindset is the way we buy. And so I've already mentioned some of the practical solutions that we can do. I've already mentioned some of the practical solutions that we can adopt if we still desire to wear braiding hair, but don't desire to put our lives on the line in the process. And so, yes, these safer types of braiding hair, they may be more expensive than the typical plastic braiding hair that we are used to. But again, mindset shift. What is more important, your money or your life? I hope you found this video valuable. I hope it's been eye-opening, and I hope that it causes you to make wiser decisions when it comes to the health of your hair, not just for yourself, but for those around you, for those that you love, for your children, for your mothers, your sisters, your friends. And if you are enjoying this type of content, I'm coming out every week. I'm sharing what the hair industry is not sharing. My desire is for you to have phenomenal hair and to be the most phenomenal version of yourself. And if you would like to work with me, you can click the link in the description below, and I will see you again next video.